The alien girl stood at the edge of the human border station, her hands shaking, her heart beating too fast. Her name was Navarra, and it was her first time on a human base. She had trained her whole life for this mission, but nothing prepared her for this moment. Cold steel walls surrounded her. Flashing lights scanned every corner, and soldiers in black armor stood like statues. She tried to look brave, but fear sat deep in her chest. The line in front of her moved slowly, and every person had to pass through the scanning gate. It wasn't just any scanner, it was the full-body molecular scanner humans were famous for. Her people warned her, "The scanner sees everything. Navarra, even through your clothes." As she stepped closer, she saw a tall human officer standing beside the scanner. He had dark eyes and a clean uniform, his expression calm but serious. He didn't smile, didn't blink much, just watched everyone pass. When her eyes met his, she looked away quickly, her face growing hot. Why was he staring like that? Could he already tell she was different? The scanner beeped as the person ahead of her walked through. A red light flashed, and a mechanical voice spoke. "Please remove all metallic and fabric items." The human officer looked up, and the man removed his jacket and belt. The scanner turned green, and the gate opened with a soft hiss. Now it was her turn. She stepped into the gate, her heart pounding in her ears. The machine made a strange sound, then beeped twice. Red lights again. "Please remove all metallic and fabric items," the voice repeated. Louder this time. She froze, her eyes wide and her mouth slightly open. I can't," she whispered, but no one seemed to hear her. The officer stepped forward, slowly, his boots making soft thuds. "On the floor, is there a problem?" he asked in a calm voice. She looked up at him, her cheeks turning bright pink. "The scanner won't clear you unless you follow the instructions," he added, not unkindly. She bit her lip and looked around. There were no private rooms, no curtains, no shadows to hide in. Everyone could see her, and the idea of undressing here, in front of this human, made her knees weak. She stammered, "I didn't know it would be like this. You've never passed through a human gate before?" he asked. She shook her head quickly, and her voice came out smaller. "Never." He looked at her closely now, noticing how her body trembled, how she clutched her coat tightly. There was something unusual about her, something fragile. "Do you have any hidden tech on you?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then slowly nodded. "Under the skin," she whispered. "They'll see it if I take anything off." His expression changed for a moment, surprise mixed with curiosity. "Do you want to step aside?" he offered, pointing to a corner near the wall, but others were watching now. And the scanner continued to blink red. She moved with him to the corner, her hand still gripping her coat. "I can't remove it," she said softly. "It's not clothes, it's a part of me." He leaned in slightly, keeping his voice low. "Then we need to find out what it is," he said. "Otherwise they won't let you through." "I'm not a danger," she replied quickly, her eyes pleading. He stared at her for a moment longer, then nodded once. "All right, I believe you," he said, surprising her. "But we still need to scan you." She didn't know why, but those words gave her comfort. This human, this officer, he didn't look at her like the others did. Not like she was strange or weak, more like he was trying to understand. He pressed a button on his wrist device, and a small portable scanner buzzed to life. "This won't show you fully," he said, "but it will help me figure out what's inside you." She nodded, trying to breathe normally, though her blush stayed on her face like fire. He moved the scanner slowly around her back, and it beeped loudly at her lower spine. He paused, looked at the screen, then looked at her again. "That mark," he said quietly. "That's not a normal implant." She froze. "You recognize it?" He nodded slowly, a strange look in his eyes. "I've only seen one of these before," he said, "and the person who wore it. They disappeared." She blinked, her lips trembling now. "Then maybe I'm not supposed to be here." The officer didn't answer, but he didn't step back either. In that silent moment, something passed between them, fear, mystery, and something else. The red lights above still blinked, but neither of them noticed anymore. They were already past the scanner. Into something much deeper, Navarra sat on the cold metal bench near the scanner room, her coat now draped around her like a weak shield. The human officer stood a few feet away, his arms crossed, eyes watching the entrance like a silent guard. His name tag read Lt. Marcus Vale, but she hadn't dared say it out loud yet. She felt too many things all at once: shame, fear, confusion, and a strange calm because he hadn't abandoned her. He didn't laugh, didn't stare, didn't ask anything cruel. Instead, he just watched, quietly, as if waiting for her to find the words. She looked at the scanner he'd used on her back, the small device still blinking softly in his hand. "Where did you see this mark before?" she finally asked, voice almost a whisper. Marcus glanced down at the device, then back at her. "A prisoner from your side came through 10 years ago," he said. "Same symbol, same spine." She blinked fast, her fingers tightening around. "The coat, what happened to them?" He hesitated, then said, "They vanished from our holding room. No trace, no log, just gone." The words hit her like a gust of wind. The same symbol, the same story. She didn't know who that person was, but now she was walking in their footsteps. She shifted on the bench, her skin still hot from the scanner. Incident, the memory of standing there, told to undress, with Marcus just steps away, made her heart flutter with leftover embarrassment. But it wasn't the shame that stayed with her. It was the look in his eyes. He hadn't looked at her like a creature or a machine or even a woman. He had looked at her like she was human. "I wasn't supposed to come here," she said suddenly. Marcus turned, brow raised slightly. "Then why did you?" She didn't answer right away, just stared at the blinking scanner. "If I told you, would you believe me?" "Try me," he replied, pulling a chair across from her and sitting down. She breathed in deep and let it out slowly, her hands trembling now. "There's something buried on this station," she said, "something my people lost a long time ago." "A weapon?" he asked without flinching. "No," she said, shaking her head. "Something older. Something powerful, but not meant for war." He leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. "Then what is it meant for?" She looked him in the eyes for the first time, her voice stronger. "It's meant to wake up something sleeping." The room felt colder suddenly. Marcus leaned back in the chair, his expression unreadable. "You're saying this station is sitting on something ancient?" She nodded. "The mark on my back, it's not just a code." She reached for the collar of her coat, hesitated, then pulled it down just enough to show the skin where the scanner had beeped. Etched into her flesh was a glowing pattern, thin. Lines like veins of silver moving just under her skin, not with fear, but with wonder. "That's not cybernetic," he said softly. "That's alive." "Yes," she whispered. "It chose me." He leaned closer, the hum of nearby machinery filling the silence. "Then why are you hiding it?" She hesitated, her voice dropping low. "Because others are looking for it too." His expression grew darker. "How many?" "Too many," she replied. "And if they find me first, they'll tear it out of me." Marcus stood suddenly, walking toward the door and locking it. Then he turned back to her, more serious than before. "You need to tell me everything," he said, "right now." She nodded slowly, her throat dry, her mind racing. "The map is hidden in pieces," she said. "And one piece is here inside this station." He folded his arms. "And the others?" She looked up at him with calm eyes, scattered across dead worlds. "But I'm not going to reach them if I can't survive this one." There was a sudden buzz on the door panel, a voice crackling through the intercom. "Lael, report." To command now. Marcus didn't move, his eyes still on her. The voice repeated, louder this time. "Now, Lieutenant." He pressed a button and answered, "On my way," then looked back at her. "You're not safe here anymore," he said in a quiet tone. Navarra stood, wrapping the coat tighter around herself. "Will you turn me in?" she asked. He shook his head. "No." She looked into his eyes and whispered, "Then I'll follow you." He opened the back panel on the wall, revealing a narrow maintenance tunnel. "Stay low," he said. "Don't speak unless I tell you." "Two," she nodded, stepping into the tunnel behind him. Heart racing, breath shallow, as the panel closed behind them, the lights above flickered, and the scanner room fell silent again. No one saw them vanish, and no one could guess that inside that small space, a dangerous secret had just begun to move. The walls of the maintenance tunnel were so tight that Navarra could feel her breath bouncing off the metal. Each step echoed in silence, and she followed closely behind Marcus, his back barely inches from her face. She had never been this close to a human before, not even during training. Yet now she was walking behind one who had just risked his career for her. She didn't know why he did it, but part of her trusted him. Maybe it was the way he didn't flinch when he saw the glowing mark on her spine, or the way he locked the scanner room door like she was someone to be protected, not captured. They moved through the tunnel until it opened into a dusty chamber filled with tools, crates, and broken panels. He turned around, finally giving her space to breathe. "We're in Storage Bay E3, he said quietly. "They don't patrol here." "Unless someone complains about a leak," Navarra nodded, her legs weak, her skin still warm from the scanner lights. She wrapped her arms around herself, looking down. "I didn't mean to bring trouble," she whispered. Marcus crouched beside a crate and pulled out a worn blanket, tossing it her way. "You didn't bring trouble," he said. "You just stepped into it." She sat down slowly, pulling the blanket over her, even though it didn't cover much. "I lied earlier," she said after a pause. "About the symbol." Marcus glanced up, listening. "It's not just ancient," she continued. "It's forbidden." His eyes narrowed slightly. "By who?" "By everyone," she replied, voice heavy. "My people, your people, even the ones who no longer exist." She reached into her coat and pulled out something small, a circular device with cracked edges and faint blue light. "This is one piece of the map," she said. "It connects to the mark on my back." Marcus took the device carefully, watching the glow shift the moment his fingers touched it. The light pulsed faster, and a faint ring of symbols floated above it. Navarra watched his face closely, and for the first time, she saw uncertainty in his eyes. "That's human language," he muttered. "Old dialect." "Yes," she said, "and only a human can activate it." He looked up sharply. "What?" She leaned in, lowering her voice. "That's why I came here, Lieutenant Vale. I needed a human who wouldn't turn me in the second he saw my back." The room grew still, and Marcus stared at the floating symbols like he was trying to remember something buried long ago. He pointed at one of the glowing marks. "This symbol here. I've seen it before." "Where?" she asked quickly, his voice turned distant, almost lost in memory. "When I was a child, before I joined the military," he said. "My grandfather showed it to me, on a cave wall." Navarra's eyes widened. "That cave. It's part of the path." Marcus looked back at her, surprised. "You're telling me my grandfather stumbled onto one of the map sites?" She nodded slowly. "And you're the key to unlocking it." A sudden banging noise came from above, a loud clang like someone dropping metal on metal. They both froze, listening. Voices followed, faint but growing louder. "Check this section," one of them said. "We received a strange heat signal." Marcus cursed it under his breath and grabbed the map piece, handing it back to Navarra. "We have to move now," he said, pulling her up by the arm. She clutched the map to her chest as he led her to a sliding vent cover on the far wall. He opened it quickly, revealing another tunnel with darker lights and even tighter turns. "This one leads to the waste drop zone," he said. "Not glamorous, but better than getting caught." She climbed in first, crawling forward into the dim tunnel, her hands scraping cold metal. Marcus followed close behind, his breathing calm but fast. As they moved, Navarra whispered over her shoulder, "Why are you helping me?" He didn't answer right away, but when he did, his voice was firm. "Because 10 years ago, someone disappeared from my station, and we never found out why. Maybe it's time we finish what they started." They emerged minutes later into Co. A service room filled with old pipes and a large circular hatch. Marcus checked the door and nodded. Once we're out of here, we head to the civilian sector. Navarro looked confused. Why there? Because I know someone, he said. Someone who still believes in old myths. As he opened the hatch, Navarro turned back for a second, looking at the silent tunnel behind them. Something about the way it closed felt final, like a door that would never open again. But she didn't cry, didn't shake. For the first time in days, she didn't feel alone, and that was enough to keep going. Asterisk. The sky above the civilian dome shimmered with false starlight, projectors painted soft. Blue skies across the curved ceiling to calm the people below. But Navarro wasn't calm, not even close. She stood in a borrowed hoodie, her alien features hidden under a cap Marcus had given her. They walked side by side through the crowded market, trying to blend in with the noise and color, the human. Base here was different from the military zone. There were smells of food, laughter, music, and no scanners. Yet every time someone brushed past her shoulder, she flinched. Marcus led her down a narrow alley behind a row of shops. At the far end stood an old metal door, rusted and humming slightly. He knocked twice, paused, then tapped 3 more times. Navarro held her breath as the door creaked open, revealing an old woman with gray eyes and gloves covered in grease. "Lieutenant Vale," the woman said with a faint smile. "You never come unless something's broken." Marcus stepped aside so she could see Navarro. "This time, something's very broken," he replied. The woman's name was Tessa, a retired engineer and known conspiracy collector. She lived among old ship parts and forgotten tech, most of it outlawed or obsolete. But she had knowledge the modern military ignored, and Marcus trusted her more than anyone in command. Inside, the room buzzed with quiet machines and flickering screens. Navarro felt like she'd stepped into a cave filled with ghosts. Tessa stared at her, her sharp eyes scanning every inch. "She's not from here," she said finally. Marcus nodded. "And she needs help." Tessa motioned to the bench. "Sit down, girl, and show me what the trouble is." Navarro hesitated, then removed the hoodie, revealing the faint silver lines still glowing under her skin. Tessa let out a slow breath. "Well, stars above. I haven't seen that since." She didn't finish her sentence, just walked over and grabbed a scanner. As she hovered it over Navarro's spine, more symbols appeared in the air, brighter than before. "Where did you get this pattern?" Tessa asked, her voice lower now. "I was born with it," Navarro replied. "It's my family's curse." Tessa frowned. "This isn't a curse, girl, it's a key." She turned to Marcus, her voice urgent now. "You know what this connects to, don't you?" "The core vault," he answered. "She says it's real." Tessa nodded slowly. "It is. And worse, others are looking for it." A loud crash outside made them all freeze. Shouts followed. Then the roar of boots against metal. Tessa moved fast, pulling a large switch that dropped steel panels over the windows. "You were followed," she hissed. "Military sensors must have picked up the map signal." Navarro stood, panic rising. "They'll take me back." Marcus grabbed her wrist gently. "No, they won't." Tessa opened a floor panel and revealed a narrow drop tunnel leading to the sewage pipes. "It's disgusting," she said. "But it'll get you to the freight lines." Navarro looked at the hole, then back at the sealed door behind them. Outside, soldiers shouted commands, weapons clicking as they readied for breach. Marcus looked her in the eye. "You trust me?" "Yes," she said, without hesitation. He pulled her toward the hole, then looked at Tessa. "Stall them," he said. "Say nothing." Tessa saluted with a tired smirk. "I was never good at telling the truth anyway." Then the door exploded, opened behind her as Navarro and Marcus dropped into darkness. The pipes were wet, cold, and smelled like rust and mold. Navarro slipped more than once, but Marcus never let go of her hand. Their clothes were soaked, their breaths short, yet in the dim tunnel light, she still saw his face focused, calm, and strangely gentle. When they finally reached the freight track, a slow-moving cargo shuttle crawled through the tunnel. Marcus timed their jump perfectly. landing on top of the last container, pulling her up beside him as the shuttle rumbled forward. Navarra looked back. Up above, smoke poured from Tessa's lab. But she knew the old woman wouldn't give them up. They lay flat as the shuttle moved deeper underground. Navarra whispered, "They'll never stop chasing us." Marcus turned his head, his cheek pressed against the cold metal. "Then we stay." "Ahead of them," he said. She stared at him for a long moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the second piece of the map. "I think it's time you saw the next part," she said, and placed it in his hand as it touched his skin. The metal below them lit up with pulsing blue lines. Symbols appeared again, only this time they formed something more: coordinates, numbers, and a shape, a doorway buried deep beneath the station. Marcus sat up slowly, his voice quiet. "That's not just a vault," he said. "It's a ship." The cargo shuttle shook as it rolled across the underground track. Steam hissed from pipes above, and cold air pressed against their skin. Navarra sat with her knees pulled to her chest, watching the glowing map float in Marcus's hand. The symbols no longer blinked randomly, they were forming patterns. Roots and something even older. A large circular shape now pulsed at the center of the projection. Surrounded by ancient writing no machine could translate, Marcus stared at it for a long time, then looked at her with quiet intensity. "This ship you're looking for, it's not just old," he said slowly. "It's hidden on purpose." She nodded, brushing hair from her face, her voice low. "My ancestors sealed it before I was born, maybe before our species had names." "Why?" he asked. "What were they afraid of?" She hesitated, eyes locked on the blue light dancing between them. "They weren't afraid of the ship," she said. "They were afraid of who could fly it." Silence stretched between them as the shuttle rumbled forward. Marcus finally asked, "And let me guess, only someone with that mark?" "Only someone with the mark and a human with old blood," she replied. "That's what the stories say." He shook his head, smiling without humor. "Of course it had to be me." The shuttle began to slow, warning lights flashing above them. Marcus stood and helped her up, motioning toward a side hatch on the container roof. "This is the last safe zone before the deep tunnels," he said. They jumped off the shuttle and landed in a forgotten loading bay. Dust covered everything, and broken screens flickered with static. Navarra's boots crunched over shattered glass as they walked. They reached a large door, sealed with ancient metal that wasn't built by humans. Symbols glowed faintly on the surface, responding to Navarra's presence. She stepped forward, her spine tingling, and placed her hand on the center emblem. The mark on her back began to glow brighter, and a soft hum filled the air. Marcus watched in awe as the door slowly peeled open, layer by layer, revealing darkness. Inside, a gust of cold air rushed out, filled with the scent of something long forgotten. They stepped inside together, swallowed by shadow. The tunnel beyond wasn't made of stone or steel. It was carved from something smooth, black, and almost alive. As they walked, the walls shimmered like they were remembering them. Marcus whispered, "This place isn't abandoned." "No," Navarro replied. "It's asleep." Lights flickered on as they passed, soft green and slow like breathing. They reached a large chamber where a pedestal rose from the floor. Navarro stepped forward and placed the second map piece onto the pedestal. The air vibrated, and a new structure appeared, clear and tall, like glass filled with stars. A control room lit up above them, with a single seat in the middle, shaped for someone humanoid. Marcus climbed the steps toward it, drawn by something he couldn't explain. Navarro didn't stop him. She just watched, silently. He sat down, and the room responded, screens lighting up, symbols aligning. From beneath the floor, a voice spoke in a language that had not been heard for centuries. Then it shifted into English, slow and deep. "Human blood confirmed." It said, "Interface unlocked." Marcus looked back at Navarro, his mouth open. "I didn't do anything," he said. "You didn't have to," she whispered. "It was waiting for you." But their moment ended too soon. A sharp alarm echoed through the chamber, metal boots on stone. growing louder, Navarra's. Eyes widened. They followed us, Marcus stood, pulling her behind the control panel. They could hear voices now, shouting in a different tongue. Not human soldiers, these were her people. They'll kill you if they see you in here, she said. Then I'll give them a reason to run instead, he replied. He touched a glowing panel beside him, and the walls around the ship began to shift. Engines deep below started humming, dust falling from the ceiling like rain. Navarra looked at him in shock. You're waking it up. Marcus's voice was calm but firm. No, he said. We're taking it back. A flash of energy surged from the floor as the ship's systems activated. The door behind them slammed shut, locking out the voices. They stood together as the control room lit up like a sun, and far above, alarms rang across the station. A forbidden's power had just awakened beneath their feet. The lights above the station flickered, then went dark for 5 full seconds. Across the command deck, officers shouted into radios and slammed their palms against frozen controls. Something was pulling power from every source, every wire, every backup cell, and no one could explain why, except for one person who was already deep below the surface, inside something older than any living record. Navarra gripped the railing of the ancient ship's command ring as the floor vibrated under her feet. Blue lights swirled around the walls like clouds forming inside glass. Marcus stood at the center, the seat now fully merged with the panel, and glowing faintly under his hand. The ship had accepted him. No hesitation, no rejection. The moment his hand touched the final symbol, the core chamber opened without a sound. This is impossible, she whispered, her eyes wide with awe and fear. The stories said it would destroy anyone unworthy. Marcus turned his head slightly, his expression calm. Maybe it still will, he said, but not today. Chamber's central node rose from the floor, a tall column covered in ancient script and spinning rings. As it turned, light poured from the cracks, forming a shape in the air. It was a map of the galaxy, but broken, incomplete. One section pulsed in red, another in silver, and the last remained dark. Navarra's voice trembled. That's where the others are, Marcus nodded. And that dark spot? That's where the war began. Suddenly, the voice of her people echoed through the sealed chamber, distorted but angry. Step away from the control node, one of them demanded. You don't understand what you're touching, Marcus. Didn't move. Navarra turned toward the sound, shouting back. You abandoned this tech centuries ago. You buried it and swore it was cursed. And for good reason, the voice snapped. Do you think the human can control it? It will consume him like it did the others. Marcus looked at Navarra and raised an eyebrow. Others? She didn't answer right away, her eyes dark with memories. My older sister tried to bond with a ship like this, she said softly. It burned her alive from the inside. That silence returned, thick and heavy. Marcus stared at the node, then placed his palm on it again. His voice was low, steady. Then we do it together. The light reacted immediately, flowing from his hand to hers, forming a ring of fire between them. Navarra's knees buckled. But Marcus grabbed her arm, keeping her steady. The ship groaned, old metal shifting as systems reawakened across the hull. And far above them, the outer hangars of the station began to crack open. Emergency sirens screamed across the sky dome. Commanders shouted to lock down every ship, every port, every gate. But it was too late. The vault ship was moving, rising, slowly from its resting place, like a sleeping god stretching after a long dream. Inside the bridge, Navarra's breathing was uneven, her body struggling to hold the energy pulsing between them. Marcus held her tightly, guiding her toward the command seat. You're not doing this alone, he said. Let the ship split. The load. She collapsed into the second console seat, and the ship instantly adjusted, lights dimming just enough to stabilize her heartbeat. Her people were outside now, launching plasma rounds at the hull. The sound echoed through the structure, but left no mark. Its outer shell absorbed every blast like water. Inside, Marcus activated the communication panel and spoke clearly. "This ship is no longer yours," he said into the open channel. "And neither is she." The voice on the other end snarled. "Then you are both enemies of the Empire," Navarro whispered. "We always were." With a sudden shift, the ship's engines activated, not with fire, but with silence. A blue field surrounded the vessel, and gravity snapped sideways for a moment. Then the ship disappeared, vanishing from orbit in a single blink. Stars stretched like silver threads across the black sky as the ancient ship dropped out of warp. No alarms, no countdown, just sudden stillness. It hovered above a broken moon. Its surface split wide like an open wound. Beneath the cracks lay the final piece, buried in silence, untouched for generations. Inside the ship, Marcus sat at the helm. Sweat on his brow, eyes locked on the display. His body ached from the strain, the energy of the ship still humming under his skin. He wasn't the same man who once stood at a security scanner and watched a shy alien girl blush under a red light. Now that same girl stood beside him, steady, glowing softly, stronger than before. Her mark no longer flickered, it blazed, alive with purpose. "This place," Navarro whispered. "This is where it all began." Marcus stared down at the moon. Below, its surface shaped like a scarred memory. "What is it?" he asked. "A battlefield," she answered. "And a grave." The ship descended without sound, guided not by controls, but by instinct. Its core responded to both of them now, syncing thought and movement like a shared heartbeat. They landed on a wide platform of black stone, ancient towers rising like fingers around them. Marcus stepped out first, his boots crunching old dust. Navarra followed, holding the final piece of the map between her palms. The ground reacted the moment they stepped forward. Symbols lit up, one by one, leading them toward a dark altar. A giant metallic ring stood at its center, half buried in cracked stone. "This is the key gate," she said, her voice shaking. "It connects the minds of those chosen." "And test them," Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Test us how?" "By forcing us to face what we fear most," she said. He stepped closer to the gate, and shadows shifted on the stone. A memory appeared in the ring, his brother, dying in battle, calling out for help. Marcus's breath caught, his fists clenched. "I couldn't save him," he muttered. Navarra took his hand gently. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." Then the gate turned to her, and she saw fire, screams, her sister's eyes full of pain as she vanished into a similar ship. She dropped to her knees, her hands over her ears. "I was the weak one," she cried. "I ran while she burned." Marcus knelt beside her, pulled her into his arms. "You came back," he said softly. "You brought the light with you." Together they stood, pain still in their eyes, but no longer ruling them. The gate accepted them, pulsing bright, and the final map fragment dissolved into light. A tall figure rose from the stone, holographic, ancient, neither human nor alien. "You have passed," it said. "The ship belongs to you now, and the future waits for your decision." Navarra stepped forward, lifting her chin. "What future?" she asked. "The one you make," the voice replied. "With the human who chose to see more than your mark." The light faded, and silence returned. But something had changed. In the sky above, signals broadcasted from the ship frequencies, designed to awaken other sealed crafts across forgotten systems. They weren't alone anymore, and war would no longer be the only story remembered. Later, as the stars turned quietly around them, Navarra leaned on the railing outside the command dome. Marcus joined her, a cup of recycled tea in his hand. "You know," he said, "first time I saw you, I thought you were going to faint." She laughed softly, cheeks pink again. "First time I saw you, I thought you were going to arrest me." He looked at her, his expression serious now. "I'd still do it," he said. "Only if you promise to stay with me." She blinked, surprised, and smiled with a warmth that made the ship feel less cold. "Then I surrender," she whispered. And somewhere, deep inside the ship's old heart, The lights pulsed like they were smiling too.